Hey YouTube, how's it going guys? Now those of you who follow me on Instagram have probably noticed that I've had the pleasure over the past 3 months of driving around in this beautiful Arctic Race Blue metallic BMW parked behind me. This is obviously a big step away from the little hatchback that I normally drive around in. I love it to bits, but I'll be honest, it doesn't really compare to a big luxury GT car. Also one that is very similar to a car that I'm currently racing, because I'm currently driving a BMW M4 GT4 car in the ADAC GT4 Championship, which is the full M Sport version of the outgoing version of this car. This car is an M440i XDrive, four-wheel drive, pretty much the top of the run M Sport version of the car before you get to the M4. Before I tell you all about what it's like to drive, I thought I'm just going to run through some of the performance stats and give you a bit of an overview about what goes into an M440i XDrive. So guys, welcome inside the M440i. It's a pretty beautiful place to be. You know, with the sunroof open on a nice sunny day, it feels like somebody upgraded my life to business class. It's pretty cool. This car's fully kitted out. It's got Oyster Vanasca leather. Performance stats on this car, it uses BMW's 3 litre straight 6 twin turbo, makes just under 370 brake, 500 newton meters of torque from as little as 1,900 RPM, 60 in 4.5 seconds, limited to 155, and it will do a standing quarter in 12.6 at 110 miles an hour. It is an absolute rocket ship, believe you me. It also has the head-up display on this. It's the first time I've actually experienced this in a car. So it tells you your speed at all times and also the speed limit of the road you're on using GPS, which is just a good little reminder as well, basically not to break the speed limit. Like a lot of cars, it has different modes. So it has sport, economy, comfort and adaptive. These modes are configurable, and I've found actually running the car in economy mode on some longer journeys, it's possible to get some pretty good miles per gallon out of it. It's got an 8-speed gearbox, so it automatically shuffles up the box. Because it's got so much torque and power, you can kind of just cruise around quite happily in that mode. Whilst it does have manual override, so you can drive it using the paddles on the back of the steering wheel, it's interesting. It does change the character of the car a lot. I found that 90% of the time I just drive the car in auto mode because it suits the character of the car. This car does have the full M Sport differential suspension and brakes, and using the onboard control, you can configure the different modes. So if you want, you can set sport mode to be super responsive, you know, most responsive throttle mode, stiffest suspension, so on and so on. There are times when you're on a great bit of road and you do want to set the suspension a bit harder, a bit stiffer, and enjoy the car. And when you do that, it's very, very planted. You know, it's very responsive, feels very taut, and it really holds the road well. It's got a big set of tyres on this car, so the grip, especially having the four-wheel drive, is really impressive. And compared to what I drive day to day, the hatchback, which when I get back in it now, feels like a go-kart because it's just so bumpy. I love the fact that this car is just so smooth, composed, quiet. It's just a really luxurious experience driving around in it. One particular thing to mention in this car that I'm really going to miss when it goes is the optional 16-speaker Harman Kardon sound system. The sound quality is like nothing I've ever experienced in a car. I just love it. The depth, the quality, anything you put through it just sounds like you're in the room with that music. It's true to say that I'm a massive fan of how this car looks. BMW really wanted to create a standalone kind of look to the 4 Series with the G22 model, and I think they've definitely achieved it with this car. I've found the more time I spend with the car, and it's those moments when you're walking away and you look back at it, is that every time I see it, I start to appreciate new features and new details. When you look at the car on a computer screen, it looks very sleek and elegant. It has that same impression when you see it in 3D, but you also start to notice all these other features that actually make the car look quite pumped up and quite aggressive and kind of muscular, like this kind of rear 1.75. It's when you suddenly start to see the light hitting the car at different angles, you can appreciate all these new little features. I was lucky to meet Frank Stephenson recently, one of the most iconic car designers of our time, who actually worked at BMW for a while. It was really interesting talking to him about how designers approach evolving car design for a manufacturer. But something Frank said was that car designers really need to be looking 10 years ahead all the time, because from the point of them putting pen to paper, that car might take anything from 4 years or maybe even longer to reach production. Then the car actually makes it into reality. It's then got to stay current for probably at least another 4 or 5 years before the manufacturer starts revising it. I feel like I've come to appreciate this even more having visited the BMW Museum in Munich late last year, because it's when you look at the history of all of the cars and the styling and how it's evolved, especially things like the front end. BMW's clearly looked to the past to look forwards. They've taken some really classical elements of the design and put them together in a very futuristic way that actually I think looks stunning. The car's got so much presence, but it's also immediately recognizable as a BMW. I'm really going to miss it when it goes back. The first day that this car arrives, I took it to a reservoir that I know. I run around it a lot. Beautiful sunny day. I parked it right next to the water. I think especially, in this colour, in the Arctic race blue metallic against the water and the sun shining on it, just seeing all the lines of the car, it just looked absolutely mega. And ever since then I've just driven it pretty much every day really. As it stands, folks, I've got a couple of weeks left with the car, and I'm just thinking, what should I do in that time? What's the most epic road trip or thing I can do in the UK, bearing in mind? And I'd love to know, in fact, tell me, what would you do if you had this car right now? Where would you go? What would be your dream drive? So please put your comments in the box, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. I'm soon going to be off to Zandvoort racing the M4 GT4. So who knows, maybe I can take it to Holland for one final fling across Europe. See you then, bye bye.